The Southern Nevada Water Authority is taking care of what's in your glass. Sourced from the Rocky Mountains, your mineral-rich tap water is tested more than 300,000 times a year. It meets or surpasses the highest quality standards. It even meets more stringent requirements than bottled water. Cheers to that, Southern Nevada. Learn more about your tap water at snwa.com. We need reliable, fast internet to get stuff done, and fiber internet projects are finally underway in Las Vegas. But are they actually creating more havoc than helping us out? Today on CityCast Las Vegas, I talk with downtown advocate Patricia Haddad Bennett about how microtrenching for internet installation wrecked her neighborhood. Is your neighborhood next? It's Wednesday, June 25th. I'm Sarah Lohman, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. Okay, Patricia, we all want faster internet. This podcast is recorded remotely. We need it to do our jobs. And there are a lot of places around the state that are in badly need of better access too. So how did internet installation, high-speed internet installation, play out in your neighborhood?
Thanks for the question.
You're welcome.
It's good to be here. Hello. And
always good to have you.
How did that play out? So about a year ago, there was a company that came in and attempted to install fiber internet cable underground in the neighborhood and really made a mess of it.
For my knowledge, where is it normally? Not underground.
Yes, underground, but we did have it currently, like we have utility poles that are above ground because it's an older neighborhood, right?
Gotcha.
And so this is sort of the new frontier of coming into downtown and putting some underground internet utility in place.
And so they made a mess of it. What happened?
A lot of ugly things happened throughout the whole process, but essentially the city of Las Vegas entered into a contract, it's called a franchise agreement, with a company called Gigapower. And, one day these cones came and these workers came and there was no notice of what the work was or what was happening or why this construction was happening on our residential streets. And at the same time, we started hearing from various neighbors, like on my block and on blocks that are next to us, saying that their plumbing and their water and these things were getting damaged and they were having issues. And then also, someone's landscape was being destroyed by these workers. And then also there were these workers that were like peeing in yards.
Whoa.
And, they had these barricades that they put up. So like the cones, they're called barricades, right? Is like the technical term for it. But like when they put up the cones and they've got the guy with the stop sign that tells you when to go and when not to go, if it's like a 1-lane road, for example, consistently people were getting driven into each other. So you were like driving into head-on traffic, like in the neighborhood. And so this was all sort of bubbling at my house. One day, just totally randomly, this was after everyone had gone to work, they put up no parking signs on the street. Mm-hmm. And then within about an hour, they had towed my husband's car out from in front of our house.
Who was at work and didn't know that there were no parking signs. Sure.
Exactly.
People got jobs, yeah.
Well, and what we know, because we had a little bit of insider knowledge, is no parking sign isn't instant, right? It's a 72-hour thing. So you've got 72 hours after a parking sign goes up to move your stuff. But they towed our car within an hour, right? So like red flag, something is fishy here. And so we started talking to other neighbors and finding out that every part of the neighborhood that these folks had touched so far had damage, had issues with like ADA compliance. So like there was like cones that were just laid out in the middle of a sidewalk. We have a neighbor who has a child that has mobility issues. So they're in a wheelchair. And so as they were trying to go around the neighborhood like they usually do on a normal day, they found that there was really soft patches throughout the sidewalk. And then there was also all of these temporary hole covers. I mean, hundreds of them riddled across all of the sidewalks that didn't go away for a very long time. And so we were asking, like, this is temporary, what's going on? All to say, nobody knew why this was all happening. So we went to the city and we found out about this contract with Gigapower. and learned that they had hired this company, Tilson, to come in and do all of this work. There was never any notification to neighbors, like I said, about what it was or what was happening. And so we called a meeting to find out what they were doing. And they said, oh, this is super not invasive. It's a 3-day thing. It's this fancy new thing called microtrenching. It's awesome. We're sorry. They said that they said that they had noticed, put notices on everyone's doors and that they have a GoPro camera, showing that. And we asked for it and never saw that. And so they were kind of dishonest. And we were also told in this meeting when we met with this company as well as the city councilwoman, because the city is a big part of this, that you all asked for more internet. And so that's what we're doing. So kind of just deal with it, grit through it, and, it'll be over in a couple of days. And what we found is, 300 plus days later, the work had not been completed.
300.
Yeah. So something that was supposed to be a couple of days in and out has been almost a year at this point.
So there's so much to unpack and so much to follow up on. So, first of all, Clark County subjects us to infrastructure projects all the time. Tropicana, for example, like inconvenient, but in theory, inconvenient for a short amount of time, and then our life resumes. So how has this project been different from something like a Clark County normally inconvenient infrastructure project?
So I think a lot of it has to do with the communication and the transparency about what work was being done. So the contract agreement was in 2023 with the city of Las Vegas. And, generally, when there's a big project, there's a big public involvement campaign. They let everyone know what's going on, how long it's going to be.
There's like public feedback meetings.
Yeah, there's like charrette boards and dots, right? And like we've all, especially like down here, like we know the role. Like, we show up to these things. We want to be informed. We know how this goes. But there was zero information whatsoever. And responsibility was put on us as neighbors, just as like residents, to go public records request the city to understand what is this project even about and to find this information out, because it was just never communicated. And to me, that is so much the core of the issue, and like so much could have been prevented had there really been a public involvement process, or at the very least notification that this was happening.
So basically, one day you had these people digging up your yards and towing your cars with no real idea of who they were or what they were doing there.
Exactly. Yes, precisely.
Okay. And as another result of this, there is some lingering damage to people's properties and the city infrastructure. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, for sure. So we started collecting stories from neighbors, and we've got them all posted on a website that we're hosting, tilson.vegas. Check it out.
Tilson.vegas.
Yes. And neighbors had a bunch of different types of things, exactly like what you said. Their landscaping had been concreted over. Folks were blocked from leaving their driveway for hours. Like there was one, it was like a pregnant woman that needed to get to her doctor's appointment in the neighborhood, and she was blocked in. We had other neighbors on a whole block in the neighborhood that at the same time, the sewage started backing up into their homes. And then, obviously they, let the city know and then let the company know. And then the company came in and to try to fix, quote unquote, you can't see me, I'm air quoting, fix it.
Scare quotes, yeah.
They piped concrete into the sewer line on accident. And so that created a bigger issue, right? And so there are folks that still have tons of plumbing issues. People's cars were also damaged. So anyone that has a 4-wheel drive car knows that you can't get a regular tow where they like pick up the front end of your car and drag, right? Because it like ruins your transmission. Where we had folks that's exactly what happened. It was an illegal tow and they didn't put it up on the flatbed and now their car is wrecked. And so there were some folks that reached directly out to the company and they were like, oh, sorry, we'll fix it. My understanding is they did work with some neighbors to pay for the repairs of things that they damaged. But there's a lot of folks that got left in the lurch. And the question is also about, the sort of ongoing damage, right? So what they were doing was like this construction method that like literally like vibrates and it like vibrates your entire house. So for example, if there's a crack that gets worse over time, how are you going to get taken care of, or like, how are you going to get, like your money back essentially if you have to make a repair and it all was because of this company? And that's really still an outstanding question.
So there has been some issues that were resolved, but now Tilson has declared bankruptcy. So I assume, has everything ground to a halt and everything is also still a mess?
So, earlier this year, and this was after public comment to the city council, tons of emails to the city council, meeting with people that work for the city, like just like city staffers, we met with the mayor at one point about this, and submitting tons and tons of complaints. Every time we saw an issue, it was like snap a photo, get a timestamp, and send that over.
Mm-hmm.
And so through all of that, earlier this year, there was a stop to any new work, which is what we asked for. And they just were focusing on fixing all of the stuff that was broken. And now at this point, we're still in that phase, but it's not Tilson anymore. It's a new company.
Okay.
So that's
Tilson
been
is
brought
bankrupt,
on.
but there is now a new company fixing the mess that is there.
Yes.
And what about in terms of people getting, you mentioned some people got reimbursements for the damage that was caused, but other people are still in process. So what is the plan to address the sort of lingering damage?
So at this point, it doesn't seem like there is a plan.
Okay.
And, I would really look, not to like call them out, but like I would really look to the city of Las Vegas to identify a process for neighbors to be able to submit claims and submit issues. Like there are some neighbors that are working with Tilson's insurance company, for example, right? And so they're going to still need to work through their process. But we had one neighbor that reached out just a couple of days ago about an ongoing plumbing issue that she's been in touch with them about, reached out to Tilson.
Mm-hmm.
Tilson sent them back a general email line for Gigapower saying, we're going bankrupt. This is no longer our thing. Reach out to Gigapower or engage like through a broker in this bankruptcy process that's happening in Delaware. Of course, every company is incorporated in Delaware for some reason. And so like there is no good answer to that, unfortunately. But there needs to be, and there should be, and there needs to be accountability to not only, Tilson, but also to Gigapower that hired these folks in. And if there are ongoing issues, that is somebody's responsibility and certainly shouldn't be the homeowner.
You know that feeling when someone shows up for you just when you need it most? That's what Uber is all about. Not just a ride or dinner at your door. It's how Uber helps you show up for the moments that matter. Because showing up can turn a tough day around or make a good one even better. Whatever it is, big or small, Uber is on the way. So you can be on yours. Uber, on our way.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by The Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
So do you have a sense, too, is the process of microtrenching inherently bad and destructive? Or did Tilson just do a bad job? Can it be done well?
I think that is a great question. And I wish I had the answer to that question because, I think it's like this technique, right? This construction technique, as I've heard it called, of microtrenching is newer, if I understand it correctly. It's supposed to be minimally invasive. It's supposed to be just like a deep kind of, but thin cut along the curb in the street that doesn't look like anything at the end of it. Whatever they did is not that. Because when the other company came in to fix it, we've now got a 3-foot wide, newly paved strip on either side of the street. They were supposed to seal all the cuts that they made, but those seals went bad almost immediately. And so I don't even know if what they were doing was microtrenching. Like, certainly that's what the city thought they were doing.
Because it sounds like microtrenching, it's just like digging a tiny hole and then putting fibers in and then filling it back up.
Yeah.
So what on earth was actually going on?
Great question. I would love to know the answer to that question.
Is this coming to other parts of the valley?
It has to. Yes. Let's say yes. I know that for a fact. So there's this company is just one company. Gigapower is just one company. But then you've got Google Fiber, for example, that's also getting in the fiber internet broadband game. And they've been doing work within the city of Las Vegas. Gigapower has a contract agreement with Clark County to go into unincorporated Clark County. But I think the reality is like, this is the direction that technology is moving as far as internet technology and, underground and this sort of fiber optic cable. Like, that's all great. And we actually have no problem with that. I think the bigger question is quality control, communicating with neighbors, and just doing the right thing in a neighborhood. I think that's really, really sort of where things fell apart.
What should neighbors be on the lookout for if microtrenching is coming to their neighborhood and if it's being done badly?
That's a really good question. So I think that if you are a resident and you hear that this installation is coming into your street or into your area, the first thing I would do is go take pictures of your property, of every inch of it, of the front, outside of your street, so that you can track if there's any changes. Because some things that we saw are just like cracks in the sidewalk that didn't exist before that now do exist and things like that. I think part of where we had success as the downtown neighbors is that we were communicating with each other. And we had open lines of communication. We were connecting dots and we were meeting regularly to figure out and to strategize, like, what do we do about this? And I think this is really a story, not so much about microtrenching and fiber for me in my mind. And it's really a story about what happens when neighbors are in communication with each other and are acting together and are putting pressure on the city in this instance to do something different. Well, to do something is really what we wanted, right?
Yeah.
To hold them accountable, to intervene, to do something here. But it was really the power of everyone coming together and everyone voicing and sort of like singing from the same sheet of music that I think really put things over the edge. So maybe my second plug would be like, go meet your neighbors if you don't know them.
So, just to clarify too, it's not the technology of fiber internet that is the issue. It's how this company handled it and how it seems like the city just let Tilson and what's the other one?
So Gigapower, yeah.
Gigapower sort of do this contract however they wanted, that there didn't seem to be a lot of oversight. Fiber is coming to other communities here. Should people be concerned about how this might affect their neighborhood?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so. Only because we don't know what it's going to look like. Like, my hope is that other companies will come in and do a better job and, follow the plans that they said that they were going to do and, appropriately cone off the neighborhood. And, so that's my hope, right? That other companies come in and they are good actors. But I think for folks that are in other municipalities or folks where this might be coming to you, hold your elected officials and hold, staff who are responsible for this to task and say, like, this is your job. We live in a non-HOA neighborhood. And so we have neighborhood associations. It's a different thing, right? But it's not the same. And so we really have to engage in democracy, right? Like, work with our elected officials in order to make sure that our voice is being heard very directly. And so that would be my recommendation as well.
Are there legislative fixes currently being considered?
So legislative session is over. There was a bill that passed. I mentioned that that franchise agreement, the contract with Gigapower between the city, didn't include any cost sharing component. Although that is the case for like Cox, for example. Cox, I think, does a 5% cost sharing whenever they go into a community because they recognize they're going to go in, they're going to do construction in the public right of way, right? Which is like the road, which is like the public property, but that there will be ongoing maintenance required to that public road. And so this 5% fee, essentially, that the municipality gets covers that. The city of Las Vegas did not negotiate a fee. period. So in the legislative session, there was a bill that did pass that requires a 2% fee for these types of contracts, which is great, especially considering for a city that's like pretty deep in debt right now from some other decisions that they've made. Like, it was just shocking.
We've got a great episode about that.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Look it up. I can't even think what that golf course is called anymore.
Badlands.
Badlands.
It
I
was
thought
not
it had
just
a very
that, right?
ominous name.
Yeah, totally.
Lord. Fast, reliable internet is, we know from the pandemic, it's essential to everyday functioning now. Like, things have
Totally.
changed in the past 5 years. Even though it was essential before, now it's more so than ever.
Yeah.
So do you think that internet should actually be a public utility, like our, water and electricity and gas bill?
That is, I don't know that I have an opinion on whether it should be a public utility. I mean, it is a life necessity. I will say, you're right. And a couple of years ago, and stop me if this is like non sequitur, but like a couple of years ago, actually right when the pandemic hit and all of the kids got sent home and they were doing like remote learning, we figured out that a ton of people were not connected, or if they were, they had like really minimal bandwidth.
Yeah.
And especially kids in like East Las Vegas and poorer parts of the Valley. And so, some work that I did then with some parents, some moms who had multiple kids at home that were trying to get on their Zoom class, but were getting kicked off. And then all of a sudden they had 30 absences. And then all of a sudden they were getting a truancy notice, right? Which is just like insane. And so we worked with families and we worked with Cox to ensure that like the subsidized internet plan that they had more bandwidth for families so they could have multiple kids at one time. And I think to me, that really reinforced this idea of like, it is not a luxury, it's a necessity to be able to have connectivity that is reliable at home.
I mean, people can't apply for certain jobs if they don't have connectivity, right?
Exactly.
It's a part of our day-to-day.
It's just so much a part of the world that has been built up around us that you can't exist without it in some form or function, right?
But certainly having high-speed internet shouldn't cost you thousands of dollars in plumbing repairs.
Correct.
If there's any moral to the story.
Yes. Co-sign on that. Yes.
Thank you so much for your time, Patricia.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to have been able to have this conversation with you. I appreciate it, Sarah.
That's all for today here in CityCast Las Vegas. If you enjoyed this show, why not tell a friend? You can rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Take care.